Hey, it's Scotty. Today I want to talk about 10 life-saving items that you should always definitely have. Now, I've got an entire emergency kit playlist, and if you've got guinea pigs, it's definitely something that you want to consider, you want to start assembling if you haven't already. If you've got an emergency kit and you have experience setting up your emergency kit, put whatever experience you have in the comments. That's going to help new guinea pig owners as well as all of us to figure out exactly maybe what we should prioritize or what items have helped you in the past the most. So there are tons of items in my emergency kit playlist. I even go to places like Dollar Tree and other places to find cheap emergency kit items that you definitely need. So I will include that playlist right there and also at the end, so stick around to the end and watch that next. But let's talk about, these are more items, these are not necessarily supplies that you'll need, some of them are, but these are 10 of the most important items, and these are life-saving items. So let's get right to that list. Number 1, a carrier. If you need to go to the vet, if you need to get your piggies out, say there's an emergency and you have to leave with your piggies, you need some way to transport them. Now, I've done a number of videos about my favorite types of carriers. I have a video about traveling with your guinea pigs, and I list all of the different types of carriers and cages and things that I recommend when you're on the road. But any type of simple carrier that you can grab your piggies and take them, even a cardboard box could be a life-saving item. So having a carrier, having some kind of way to transport your piggies to the vet or in and out of a place in an emergency, that's number 1. Definitely you need a carrier or multiple carriers. Number 2, a heating pad. If your piggy is sick, if their temperature drops, there are a number of reasons why you might need a heating pad to keep your piggies warm. You might find that they are just not doing well at, maybe it's the middle of the night and you can't rush to an emergency vet and you need to keep them warm. A heating pad or even an electric blanket can be a really important and life-saving item. And on the opposite end of the spectrum is an ice pack or frozen water bottles. I like to wrap my frozen water bottles in a sock, something like that, to keep your piggies cool. If you are traveling or transporting your piggies on a really hot day, sometimes the air conditioner isn't going to cut it. It's always a good idea, especially in an emergency, maybe if the car breaks down, it's always a good idea to have ice packs and frozen water bottles, not just to keep your meds and your veggies cool, but to keep your piggies themselves cool. So having a couple different size water bottles in the freezer that you can keep frozen is a really great option. Also, when you're at home in the summer, say the power goes out, or just in general, maybe you don't have air conditioning in the room, there could be a number of reasons why a frozen water bottle of all different sizes can be life-saving for your piggies in an emergency and just anytime it gets too hot. Guinea pigs are very susceptible to heat stroke, and it is very important that they maintain their temperature within a certain range. They generally thrive between 65 and 75 degrees. You don't want it to be too hot and too cold. The rule of thumb is that if you're comfortable, they're going to be comfortable. But if you're starting to get hot, they're probably already hot. They've got all that fur and they don't have the same ability to cool down like we do. So frozen water bottles, ice packs, a cooling pad, CaviCage.net. Cavi makes a cooling pad. It's a gel. They can sit on it and it distributes their temperature. So something like that can be life-saving. Number 4 is antiseptic spray. And the reason why I say antiseptic spray could be life-saving is because if your piggy gets a cut or gets bit, if you don't clean that wound properly, it can get infected. It can turn into an abscess and it can get your piggy sick. They could even die from sepsis from an infection that reaches the bloodstream. So you want to avoid that with antiseptic spray. If your piggy has any kind of wound or thing like that that could possibly get infected, simply spraying it with Bactine or betadine or some kind of iodine solution, that's what we recommend. But even in a pinch, using something like hydrogen peroxide could be a good way to clean the wound. But really, we prefer Bactine or betadine. It's that iodine that you can mix in water. You don't need it to be too concentrated. You can dilute it in water, put it on a cotton ball, put it on a paper towel, something to clean the wound so that it does not get infected. That could definitely save their life. And while we're talking about that, I would also add any kind of antibiotic ointment that you can put in after the fact to make sure that it stays clean. So an antiseptic spray and an antibiotic ointment, that is definitely a life-saving supply, something that you're going to want to keep in your emergency kit. Number 5 is activated charcoal. When your guinea pigs have runny poops, diarrhea, something like that, they can actually get very dehydrated. It's not the same as soft, squishy poops, but when they have diarrhea, that is something that you really need to get a hold of, get a handle on, and I would recommend using activated charcoal. If you can't get a handle on their diarrhea within a day or two, then it's definitely time to go to the vet. But I've found that activated charcoal will actually cure diarrhea in almost every case. Sometimes if it's really dark and runny and stinky, there is some kind of a bacterial infection in the gut and they might actually need antibiotics. But definitely try the activated charcoal. It's a charcoal capsule. You put it in, mix it with water, and then you distribute it. I have a whole video on it in the illness section of my care guide, but I'll also put that right here. Activated charcoal. It's very inexpensive and it can really save their life by prevent them from dehydrating and getting too sick. So definitely something that you're going to want to keep. It's just a very inexpensive and very effective tool. So activated charcoal capsules. While we're still talking about digestion, number 6 is baby gas drops. Baby gas drops can absolutely save your piggies when they are feeling bloated and they are lethargic and they're all puffed up and hollow feeling. You tap on their belly and it feels hollow. Then baby gas drops can really relieve a lot of that discomfort. But a word of warning and a disclaimer is baby gas drops are not, absolutely not, a substitute for the kind of motility medicine and other types of gas medicines that you have to get as a prescription from the vet. So baby gas drops can alleviate some of that pain and pressure while you scramble to get to the vet. And generally, this is going to always happen like on a Friday night right at 9 p.m. or something like that. But if your guinea pig is extremely bloated, hollow feeling, not eating and not pooping, that is an extreme emergency situation. You really need to get them to the vet. I have found that really there is no amount of baby gas drops and massage that is going to really help if there is a serious bloat and GI stasis problem. So you really need to get those vet prescribed motility drugs. They'll often get an x-ray to make sure that there's no blockage. There are a number of things that can cause that bloat, that can cause that GI stasis, and can create that appearance of puffed up, hollow, and not wanting to eat and not able to poop and not really wanting to move. But baby gas drops can really relieve the discomfort and maybe buy you some time while you scramble to get to the emergency vet. So baby gas drops, definitely something that you want to keep and could be a life-saving item. Number 7 is critical care. Critical care can be a life-saving item in many respects. Now, if your piggy's having tooth issues, if they are having digestive issues, if there are a number of reasons why your piggies just aren't eating. And also on the road to recovery, if your piggy is recovering from some kind of surgery, there's just so many reasons why your piggies just don't seem to want to eat on their own, and they absolutely need to keep eating to keep that digestion going. GI stasis, as we talked about before, can be deadly for piggies, and so you need to keep their digestive system going. And critical care could be the number one top most important item to keep in your emergency kit, and like one of the number one life-saving items, because it is so widely used. There are a number of different types of emergency food. Critical Care is kind of the generic version, but Critical Care is made by Oxbow. I personally like to keep the original. It's in the green bag, as well as the fine grind papaya. If you have guinea pigs that need Critical Care on an ongoing basis for whatever reason, whether it's chronic tooth issues, they're recovering from some illness, having that other flavor, they make a couple different flavors. The fine grind papaya flavor is going to switch it up. It's going to be a different flavor that maybe they're not sick of. It's also, as the name implies, it's a fine grind, and what that means is they actually, the timothy that's in those ingredients, it's ground to a finer consistency. When you mix it with water, it's easier to slurp up in a syringe. Of course, I recommend taking your 1 milliliter syringe, taking some kind of a serrated knife, cutting that end tip off of, then taking the point of the knife in and widening that 1 milliliter oral syringe so that you can slurp it up and squeeze it out in a little thicker consistency. Otherwise, it needs to be more watered down. You can also use an electrolyte mix in with that Critical Care to give double the important life-saving ingredients. While we're also talking about Critical Care and emergency food, there is an Appetite Restore which complements that Critical Care. It is made by Sherwood. It's SARX, S-A-R-X Appetite Restore, and it's got electrolytes and things like that, and it's supposed to boost appetite, which will make them more willing and wanting to eat. So Critical Care in conjunction with an Appetite Restore is an absolutely essential and potentially life-saving item that you've got to have in your emergency kit. So speaking of electrolytes, Pedialyte, or a Pediatric electrolyte mix, is my eighth life-saving item that you're going to want to have in your emergency kit. I actually keep it in the fridge. I want to keep 1 or 2 bottles of it. I like the unflavored generic version. You can get it at the drugstore. You can get it at a place like Walmart, probably even Target. It's usually in the baby section, like baby food section. The name brand version is Pedialyte, but I just get the generic version, Pediatric electrolyte mix. I like the flavorless one. You get 1 or 2. In my experience, once you open it and you start dipping that syringe in, or for whatever reason, it starts to, after a few days, kind of, I don't know if it's fermenting in there, even in the fridge, even when it's not exposed to air, it starts to grow things because it's such a nutrient dense thing. It sort of develops like these weird filaments, strands. So once you open it, it's generally not going to last longer than a week or so. So I always try to make sure that once I open one, I get a new one right away that is going to last for a long time in the fridge. So just something to be aware of. But electrolyte mix, really important. If your piggies have tooth issues and they are drooling because for some reason they can't close their mouth, they get dehydrated really fast. There's so many reasons why your piggies could get dehydrated, and you want to make sure that they are able to refill those nutrients. So Pediatric electrolyte mix, that is just an essential item to keep in your emergency kit. Definitely could be a life-saving item. Number 9, we've talked about a lot of items, a lot of emergency foods, a lot of things that require a syringe in order to administer to your piggy. So of course, number 9 for a life-saving item is oral syringes. You want to get a pack of oral syringes. Personally, and at the rescue, we use mostly those 1 milliliter oral syringes. There's no needle, it's just a syringe. It's the little one. In fact, if you go to a pharmacy, often if you ask for one, they can give you one probably for free. But I would suggest getting a box of 100. In the illness section of my guinea pig care guide, I have a box of 100, link to it on Amazon. They're not that expensive. You buy 100 and you'll probably have them for quite a long time. You know, who knows? You might not ever use 100 of them if your piggies don't get sick, but you might be surprised how quickly you can use them up. It's just really important to have a handful of those syringes. I would also recommend having a 3 milliliter and a 5 milliliter oral syringe. Super important to have different sizes for different needs, but definitely get those 1 milliliter oral syringes. Number 10, what could that 10th item be? We've talked about so many essential life-saving items that really it could be anything, but number 10, what I think is one of the most important things, one of the most important items to save your piggy's life is the illness section of my free guinea pig care guide on my website, because that illness section actually goes through, details a number of common illnesses, the signs and the symptoms about those illnesses. And so using that as a reference and reading it and learning about common illnesses is going to be one of the most important ways that you can catch an illness early and save your piggy's life. Because if you're not aware that an illness is actually happening, then you can't take steps to get your piggies better. You won't know to go to the vet if you don't think that there actually is anything wrong. It's really important to pick up your piggies every day, to be aware of any change in behavior, and it's extremely important to learn about common illnesses so you can spot them and learn about them beforehand, so any little sign or symptom that you might otherwise overlook, you'll actually be able to identify. People ask me all the time, oh, what's the average guinea pig lifespan? And that really all depends. The number one cause of guinea pigs dying young is from the fact that illnesses go misdiagnosed or undiagnosed or not even caught. And that often has to do with owners who don't realize that their piggies are sick. So guinea pigs are prey animals. They tend to hide their illness. They are homebodies. They like to be in their little house, in their hideys. And if they're not coming out for whatever reason, it's really something that you should investigate further. Why isn't my piggy coming out? They normally come out for treats. What's wrong with them? So picking them up, taking a look, looking for any of these signs and symptoms of common illnesses, and learning about those common illnesses can save your piggy's life. That's why, in my opinion, it is one of the most important items, one of the most important life-saving items that you can have, and it's free. And not only that, but it actually lists all of these other items. The entire free guinea pig care guide goes through so many aspects of care, and the illness section specifically mentions lots of these items, how to use them, when and why to use them. So that's why I put it last on my list. That's why it's really important that you read it. It's not even that long of a read. It's just a couple pages. It's really just one scrolling web page. So, and there's tons of videos that go along with that page. It will link to a lot of the illness playlist videos. I've got an entire illness playlist, and anytime something comes up with my piggies, or anytime I learn about a common illness, or if somebody sends me an email and they ask questions about common illnesses, I'll make a video and I will add that to the illness playlist, and you can get right to that from the illness section of my free guinea pig care guide on my website. You can go right down here to my care guide, and if you haven't subscribed, that's right here. Please subscribe. I put videos out every week, guinea pig care videos and fun videos, so that we can all celebrate our piggies together. So until next time, thanks for watching.